Were you able to eat?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we're live. Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. My name is Elizabeth.
And my name is Tara.
And welcome to the 180 podcast.
So formal tonight. You're
I
Elizabeth.
Oh my goodness, Ellie. I forgot.
Hey, we have a guest tonight.
No, yes, and we do have a lovely guest in tonight. But before we get into that, I do want to cover our social media platforms and where you can find us. You can find us on a 180.shift on Instagram and then 180shift on all other platforms. And you can also search up 180shift.org to find out what we're all about and check out our website. We got a lot of cool information there and just find out who we are, and it's really great.
And what we do.
That's very important in case you're confused why you're here and why you're watching us. But, okay, without further ado, let's jump right in. So we have our lovely guest in today. Do you want to introduce yourself? And we'll get into everything deeper, but just a quick introduction.
My name is Christie, and I was recently released from the Gulag in D.C. on December 1st.
The Gulag.
Mm-hmm. The Gulag, as it is dubbed, right? It's the D.C. Department of Corrections, and but they refer to the pod where the J6ers are living as the Gulag.
Interesting. Now, this is definitely very interesting. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about J6ers, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much talking about you guys being writers and like wanting to somehow tear this country apart, right?
Well, you know what I'm curious about is just what on the day of or the week of or whenever you decided to go, what prompted you to go to January 6th?
Right.
I went to attend the Stop the Steal rally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
but on it, what's because I mean, did you have to travel?
Yeah, I traveled from Los Angeles to D.C.
So
D.C.
Yeah, so that's a lot of that seems like there was a lot of initiative there. So what specifically about this
like personally?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I felt like I needed to do my part in protecting the freedoms that I enjoyed my entire life. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So you weren't there to storm the Capitol?
No.
You know, the freedoms you've enjoyed your entire life. I mean, so can you digress on that? I mean, just for people like us who are, maybe not, because sometimes we don't know everything that's being referred to because there's so much, I mean, so many different opinions, like she was saying, of what exactly are you fighting for?
Well, when I talk about freedom, I think about stories that I hear, like, for instance, just before J6, I was reading this story about a man in Cuba who set out on a sailboard to cross the ocean to reach Florida because of the tyranny in Cuba and all the oppression there. And I thought, well, that must mean America's a pretty special place if someone's willing to set out across the ocean on a sailboard to escape their own country. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, regardless of what people think or political, I guess whatever political party you are or preference, it's you can't deny the fact that America is really loved by all, that people are willing to risk their own lives and their families to come over here for a better future. Mm-hmm. If America was so terrible, why would you be wanting to come here?
I heard somebody say it once, the last time I checked, I didn't notice that Saudi Arabia had an illegal immigration problem.
Right. And you know what? Actually, my great-grandmother, she used to say, and she's from Mexico, she used to say, that this was the promised land. Mm-hmm. That this would be the promised land here in the Western world. So that kind of like her being an immigrant to this country, right?
Now, and one thing too that I've heard of being a big reason is you just, this is your first year to vote, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is my fifth year being able to vote. I don't know. Anyway, but talking about voter fraud and so much of that, a lot, Ellie here, I mean, she's just now voting. I'm sure you want to know that who you're voting for is actually going to matter, right? And there's not some sort of corruption in it. Mm-hmm. Was that a big draw for you to go to January 6th?
Oh, of course. That's why it was called the Stop the Steal rally.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, being, like, why do you like Trump so much? I mean, he's either hated or loved.
All right. So I'll go back to 2016 with that question, because in 2016 it was Hillary and Trump. And I really didn't have an opinion one way or the other. I knew I didn't want Hillary. And Trump, to me, was a reality TV star. And I thought, I don't think people with those type of ambitions belong in the White House, right? And I didn't vote in 2016 because I didn't want to be responsible for what happened next. But then when I realized that Donald Trump was going to be the president, I said, you know what? If he does one thing that I like, I'll vote for him. Just one thing, right? And so how long have you lived in California for a long time?
I was born and raised here.
Okay. So you know how the border has been a huge issue, especially in California, right? So forever, before you were born, right? And so I noticed that he's actually doing something about the border wall. And I thought, my God, for the first time ever, right? And I realized this is a person of his word, and he's doing something, and he's serious. And I thought, he's got my vote. And I never realized that watching this 2016 election and the way that it turned out, that I would, 4 years later, be at the Beverly Hills rally every single weekend rallying for Donald Trump in 2020.
Wow. Yeah. That's quite a transformation there. So
it is.
Yeah.
But I think it's a transformation for a lot of people, because I've talked to several people who told me that they were staunch Democrats and they heard Donald Trump talk once and they
changed their mind.
That's right.
What do you think it is? Like, if you could.
Well, I know what it was for me, but for them it was something. They just heard something, the way he spoke or what he was saying. A lot of people liked the political incorrectness of Donald Trump because, you know, political correctness is anti-free speech.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think people were fed up with that also.
Yeah. Now, being on that day, how did you feel the crowd was? Like, did you feel like, was Trump telling you guys to do something or rallying the crowd to be sort of rebellious, I guess?
No, I wasn't taking any direction from Trump. I was on the east side. So what the media was showing you was the west side, where all the chaos was. And so I was on the other side, and it was a different experience. There was a lot of music, and there was a lot of dancing, and there wasn't the chaos that was happening on the west side. Interesting.
So you're saying that something else happened on the other side? That's kind of interesting. Never heard of that.
Yeah. So I always say, like, the east side, I guess, was like boring, I suppose. I mean, it didn't get the immediate attention that everybody saw on the west side.
So all of you all were just like there, just...
It was a MAGA party.
Having a party.
It was a MAGA party.
A MAGA party. Okay.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
Okay. So that's very different from, yeah, like you were saying, we've seen clips of people in the Capitol building going in. I mean...
Going in or being let in?
Oh.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because I actually
do.
did. Yeah, we posted, remember that? There was like a video that we reposted that was of people just being let in. Which side was that on? Because for me, it's all a big mess. I don't know.
I cannot speak to specifics about that, because honestly, I was facing the other direction. I was looking out towards the Supreme Court, which was across the street. So I wasn't seeing who was going in and how they were getting in or anything like that. I can't speak to that.
Right, but on your side, there was nothing, nobody was trying to get in from your side.
But I had also heard, I don't know, I was facing the other way, but I had heard from other people who had attended that they were let in. And that's not what the media was talking about.
Interesting.
That news came out 6 months to a year. I feel it really went mainstream with that information. Yeah.
I mean, people still talk about it today as if it's like some really big thing. It is a big thing, I guess.
See, what I hear is a lot of people resentful that it's such a big thing, you know? Like, why are we still caught up on this?
Talking about it.
How do you feel about that?
I'm amazed that 3 years later it's still an issue. I'm amazed also that the arrests are still happening.
Yeah.
I remember when it happened, and they started arresting people right away who had gone into the Capitol, and I was concerned. And I had never been inside the Capitol.
Right. So you didn't go in.
I never went inside the Capitol, but I remember that day, after J6, and I remember people getting arrested for going in the Capitol. I remember my friends saying, "Don't worry about it. You were never in the Capitol." I said, "Oh, no, 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 no. They're coming for everyone," and I was right. They're still
Interesting.
coming.
Yeah.
So how long did it take for them to sort of get you?
2 years later.
2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And you weren't even in the Capitol, and they.
Right, but I want to clarify something. When you say I wasn't even in the Capitol, that sort of makes the people who were inside the Capitol guilty of something, and yet we saw where they were let in. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I wasn't in the Capitol, but even the people who were let in, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were. Let's talk about the day they sort of kind of like. I mean, I kind of got you. I don't know. But when they sort of arrested you, right? So let's talk
when
about
they
that
sort
day.
of arrested me.
Yeah, when they did. When they did.
When they terrorized me and arrested me.
Well, tell us about that.
Yeah, what happened?
Okay, so it was December 22nd, 2022. It was about 9:30 in the morning, and I heard the front door being busted open. They had gotten up on the roof and busted out my skylight, and they had shot out the sliding glass door in my upstairs bedroom, and you could look out the sliding glass door that had been busted out, and you could see the SWAT sitting at an adjacent property with guns drawn on me.
Wow.
Okay, what was going through your head? Because I feel like if I woke up to this, I'd be like, is there someone in my house?
I was already awake, and I realized I was under attack.
Wow.
So you knew that they were there for you?
There was nobody else in the house but me, so.
Yeah.
But they also flew a drone inside my house. A drone was flying around inside my home.
God.
They threw in tear gas and a flashbang.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And mind you, this is all over a couple of misdemeanor charges, right? A couple of misdemeanor charges for being on restricted grounds. They claim I was on restricted ground, right? Entering and remaining on restricted ground, disorderly conduct on restricted ground. 2 misdemeanors. So that's the kind of treatment you get for,
Make you sound like a terrorist.
Right. And so anyways, they dragged me out in handcuffs. They took me to the federal prison in downtown Los Angeles, where I spent a month, and then they took me a month later to the Washington, D.C. gulag.
So they completely interrupted your life. They imposed on.
It was more than interruption. It was a complete destruction.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I had a 20-year career in commercial mortgage as a portfolio manager. Okay, and then after I was released from the gulag and put out into the real world with a couple of felonies, my case is under appeal.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, and also the California Employment Development Department has so far denied my unemployment insurance benefit.
Wow. So you already were in trial, right? Was it?
I had
Had you already been charged?
well, yeah, I was charged. That's why.
Yeah.
I was charged, and so the trial happened in August of 2023.
So what happened in the courtroom? Like, what was?
What happened in the courtroom? Well.
You're like, let me bring my stuff up.
No, let me tell you what happened in the courtroom, all right? So my attorney had prepared a really, really good defense and was going for a full acquittal of the 1752 restricted grounds charge. Full acquittal, and I thought, I don't know how that's going to happen. How can they possibly let that happen, right? Because that would affect so many other J6ers who were charged with that 1752 charge. I couldn't see how it was possibly going to happen. And even though she had an amazing defense prepared for me, we went into court, and our Secret Service expert witness, who had been approved by the government and the judge pre-trial, and then at trial, after our witness took the stand, the judge refused to allow him to testify. So, my witness takes the stand, and the judge says, leave the courtroom.
Oh.
All right? So not only is innocent until proven guilty gone in this situation, but they won't even let you prove your innocence, right?
Interesting.
So, there's more. Also, the prosecution never provided any pre-trial discovery or evidence at trial that the building or grounds were restricted under 18 U.S. Code 1752, the restricted grounds charge.
So there was misconduct.
What do you mean?
From the judge. From the judge.
If that's what it's called, I suppose you call that. I don't know what legally what that's called. But what I wanted to bring up that's very important here, I've uploaded a clip on my Gifts and Go page. If you click on the arrow next to my photo, where Donald Trump's attorney, Alina Habba, recently came out of the New York courthouse. I don't know if you saw it or not, where she's describing what happened to Donald Trump in the courtroom in New York is exactly the same thing that happened to me in the courtroom and every other J6er.
Interesting.
What she is describing, and I hope everyone has a chance to look at this clip, it just came out last week, I believe. Alina Habba, Donald Trump's attorney, is describing the experience she had in the courtroom with Donald Trump trying to defend him. And the exact same thing that happened to Donald Trump in that courtroom happened to me and the J6ers. Witness, leave the courtroom.
Interesting.
It's like you weren't really given your day in court.
And this sort of thing this sort of thing goes on in courts across America. It's not just the J6ers. It's not just Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Okay? This is a problem. Clearly.
Yeah, clearly.
Right?
Yeah.
And what do we do? What do we do to stop this corruption?
I say we get some investigative reporters down there to the D.C. courthouse and start reporting on it.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Got some investigators in there?
Undercover, right?
I mean, or someone like Alina Habba comes out and explains what's happening inside the courthouse, right? Because I was amazed when I was listening to it. I'm like, my God, that's the same thing that happened to me.
Yeah. So that probably felt like how did that make you feel?
When I heard about what happened to Donald Trump in New York State, it made me feel, because you know how Donald Trump and his administration has always been about show the people, right? It made me feel like, here's another example of Donald Trump showing the people what's happening. This is what's happening. Yeah.
And him being correct about it, obviously, right?
Well, I don't know exactly what he said about the courts, but I can clearly see that this is another one of those examples of where Donald Trump and his administration is showing the people what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's not just a concern for Donald Trump, and it's not just a concern for J6, it's a concern for you and everybody.
Yeah. Even people who don't care about anything regarding this?
Even people who aren't paying attention. It's coming for you.
Interesting.
If there's something very biased and wrong in the legal system that it has, technically constitutional right to judge any of us for anything, or it's like, this is a problem, Yeah. I mean, you don't want to be falsely convicted. That itself should be, that's the one thing that America stood against,
right?
So
and all the innocent until
proven
guilty, right? But let's see, why did they choose you? I mean, you were just having a party, right?
I've been asked that question before, and I honestly don't believe that I was singled out. I think I believe, and I've watched this. They're coming for everybody. Everybody. I've been asked that several times. Why me? But why not me? Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So they're coming for everyone.
Yeah, and now what about I know that there's a few media things that have been going around about you being there. Tell us about that, what you were wearing that day.
What was I wearing that day? I want you to tell me what I was wearing.
Your
that
shirt?
day. What was I wearing that day?
Your shirt that, everybody's like kind of blurring that out.
Well, you use the polite term. Just said
No. Is there some reason why you're going to self-censor yourself?
I mean, I don't know.
Is there a risk of us getting kicked off of something?
Well,
maybe. I mean,
All
it is
right.
like the lovely age of censoring
It is.
in YouTube and
The ultra
It
cancel.
is. All right, so
Yeah.
I'll say it. I'll say it.
Okay.
All right, I'll say it. So the shirt that I was wearing, my iconic, beautiful shirt that I was wearing.
We're talking about this day.
Yeah, simply said fags for Trump. And when I'm shown in the media, they smudge out the word fags.
right, because I mean,
No, why did they do that?
I
I
mean,
want to hear why.
okay,
That's genuinely confusing to me.
Yeah, because you're not accurately reporting, right? You're not accurately reporting by smudging stuff out like that, and the media is going to decide what they what they consider is offensive or something like that. When I first
Yeah.
when I first came up with the idea and I made this shirt and I put it on, it goes back to the Beverly Hills rally, and I remember putting that shirt on and thinking, gosh, I wonder how they're going to react to this,
Yeah.
right? And I'm thinking I could get a lot of crap for it, right?
Yeah.
But I thought I'm going to do it anyways because I should be able to describe myself however I want to describe myself. I should be able to say whatever words I want to say regardless if it's offensive to others. It's all about free speech. So the shirt was an anti-political correctness statement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because as I was telling you before, political correctness is anti-free speech. And so I put it on and I walked around the Beverly Hills rally, and I can tell you this, I got nothing but love and admiration, and everybody wanted to take pictures with me. It was amazing. I had no idea that the reception was going to be that great.
Wow. Yeah, I'm curious though, were the photos the thing that they, because how did the government know that you were even attended J6? Was it from photos?
You don't think the government knows where you're at right now?
Tara's like, hold on, let me just look at.
What?
No, yeah, they probably know where you're at all times.
Yeah.
That's sus.
I mean, they probably know by like cameras around and your
Mm-hmm.
phones. I mean, I
But
would have to say.
okay.
You're living in a police state, all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are all the states?
Yeah.
Well, yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. It reminds me of that Simpsons episode where all those government workers are, like sitting there in these rows and they're just watching people's lives. And then finally, like, Homer Simpson says something that was, like, illegal or something, like some conspiracy. And a guy, like, stands up and he's like, finally, the government watch programs has paid off. That's what I feel like, I mean, are we really being watched to this extent? Like, are there, because I feel like, how could you employ so many people to watch all Americans? Like, is it through our phone tracking? Is it through, well, you said cameras, but I don't see cameras everywhere I go.
Well, yeah, there are cameras.
But is it
There
our
are
phone?
cameras.
I mean, I
mean,
would guess
there's-
my first guess would be our phone, because you kind of consent to being tracked when you own an iPhone or an Android, you know?
Yeah. It's all up to your own mind. I mean, you can figure out different ways. But kind of getting back on subject. So how long did you spend in jail?
I was incarcerated a total of 11 months and 10 days.
Oh, wow.
How was your time being there? How were you treated?
Being in the gulag, that's also a very popular question. I would say it was very boring. All right. We had lenient guards, we had strict guards, but I would have to say that there was probably some abuse coming out of the administration. We would have communications cut off during holidays, and I remember when I first got there in the middle of winter when it's 20 degrees outside, they had the air conditioner on us and said the heater's not working. I'm like, well, turn off the damn AC. I mean,
Right.
it's one thing if you don't have any heat, which is a lie, of course, but you got the AC on us, we can feel it.
Yeah.
You know, The food was not fit for human consumption. All right.
Yeah.
Pretty standard, I guess, for jail.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But the real nightmare is coming out of the courthouse.
Tell us about that. How did...
I told you about it. I told you. Yeah. Like, they made the witness leave the courtroom.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
I meant, like, more of, like, okay, how was it coming out of jail? Like, being in there, like, how was it after? How do people treat you now that they know? Like, do you tell people?
You're talking about after the release?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's an interesting question, because I can remember when I left D.C. to come back to Los Angeles, I was on Alaska Airlines flying nonstop from D.C. to L.A., and I got into a conversation with the flight attendant. And I told her, I said, I'm a J6er. I was just released from the D.C. Gulag. She goes, oh, my God. She says, and she starts texting her friend. She goes, I'm on the plane with a real J6er out of the Gulag.
Oh.
And she's like, my friends are all telling me they support you and they love you. And she says to me, she goes, you guys all deserve compensation for what they put you through. And this was the first interaction with, someone... with somebody just right out of jail, right?
Wow.
And I get to Los Angeles, and surprisingly, there's even in Los Angeles, support. I called my recruiter who I'd worked with for several years, and I told her what happened, and she says, oh my God, Eric, I want to tell you, we are all behind you. We understand what you went through. We understand what this is about. And I told her, I said, listen, I'm looking for a job, and I've been stuck with a couple of felonies, bogus felonies that that we're appealing.
Yeah.
And I said, I will understand if you don't want to send my resume to your clients. And she says, oh, absolutely not. I'll send it to all my clients, knowing full well. And that's amazing that you would have that kind of support.
That is a surprising amount of support. Because you go online and you see stuff like the opinions of just like, J6, oh, this is the worst. I remember that guy who was crying on CNN?
Yeah.
He was just like talking about J6 and he's like crying. And it's just like, so, but maybe it's not all lopsided after all. Maybe maybe you're saying there's been a lot of support for
but I'm sure there's the other.
Right.
Right? So my family, for instance, all right, not Trump supporters. Not Trump supporters. And I believe I'm the only one, perhaps maybe with one cousin that's a Trump supporter.
Yeah. How'd they take it?
Talking to my immediate family, it's not good.
Oh.
And 3 years later, I'm kind of surprised that they haven't put any of this together. It's disappointing.
Interesting.
Were they upset at all, or just?
They weren't happy that I was in jail, but I mean, it gets worse. I mean, you've heard about families that they're like, oh, he deserves to be in jail for, My brother was one of the people who said that, Eric, J6 was 10 times worse than 9/11.
Really?
Yeah.
You said that it was 10 times worse than 9/11.
That's what he...
Did he back it up?
That came strictly straight out of CNN.
Oh my goodness.
This is the crying guy, wasn't it?
I'm sorry.
The crying guy.
I mean, that's awful that somebody can be that programmed.
It doesn't...
How does...
It doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't make sense, the fact that somebody would say that that's worse than 9/11. Like, people actually died there.
Right.
We were attacked from terrorists, and, I mean, I'm sure the media has made it out to seem that you are the terrorist, though. So, I guess...
But, like, there was one accidental death in January 6th, right? It was, like... something that would almost happen at a party, like something hit somebody's head accidentally, wasn't that?
We'll have to talk about this offline.
Okay, we'll talk about it offline.
Well, yeah, but I don't know. Point is, 9/11, horrible tragedy.
Yes.
Why would that even be compared?
I don't know how anyone puts that together. How anybody could put that together. That January 6th is 10 times worse.
Right.
I don't know how anyone can put that together. And mind you, my brother has a master's from USC.
Okay.
Okay, full and complete indoctrination.
Wow.
Now, what about like the misconceptions of people about J6ers? What are some of the top ones that you've heard?
Well, that was one of them.
That's one of them.
That was definitely the top one.
The J6 is 10 times worse than 9/11, right? That was probably the grossest. Okay,
Yeah.
and
Pretty shocking.
yeah.
What are some more common ones you hear?
You know, most of the people that I surround myself with are not the people that are condemning J6ers. I stay away from that crowd.
It would, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but what's amazing though is like when I do come across people who are, for instance, my recruiter was telling me about all the support, and she says we support you, we're behind you 100%, and she has a transgender son.
Yeah. Could
Which,
that be why?
I don't know. You'd kind of, I mean, and she's very supportive of her transgender son, and you just wouldn't think that would exist together.
Right.
But it does in that case. Yeah.
What do you say to people who say, because I've heard this a lot, that, that you're a traitor?
I've not been called that.
You haven't been called that, but I've
been
heard
called
people say that. And what would your response be to those people, though?
God, what would my response be to someone that calls? They would probably fall into all these other categories. Mask wearing, pro-vax. What? I've given up on trying to explain if someone's that far lost. They're lost on so many different levels.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you kind of just like, meh.
It's gotten to that point. It's like even with my family, it's like 3 years later. Seriously, like none of this has like no cracks have developed in the story for you. It's just incredible. And I remember like calling my brother from the gulag, and I'm thinking he must have heard about this by now. He must have heard about this by now. I'm gonna call him, and he's gonna say, oh, Eric, I think you've been railroaded.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Really? Huh. That's pretty interesting. What do you say to like young people who have seen the whole thing with January 6th and they feel intimidated and scared to maybe get involved with politics, stand for what they care about, just like as people did for January 6th, and then it backfiring on them like unfairly in a lot of ways? What would you say to young people who are scared to go to protests, scared to stand up for their country because of what happened that day?
That's a nice question, and I'm going to read you a quote from somebody named Neil Gaiman, Gaiman, because I went to J6 and I was frightened because Trump supporters do get attacked.
Right.
Right? And here's what the quote is: being brave does not mean you aren't scared. Being brave means you are scared, really scared, badly scared, and you do the right thing anyways.
Yeah.
So that's what I would have to say to them.
I love that.
Yeah.
I should reference that more.
Yeah.
I was like,
Getting back to that, the trial. Do you know who Laura Logan is?
Laura Logan. I'm trying to think. Maybe. I mean, I probably have heard
She's
her.
on your team, so she's someone that you could follow who's really on top of this J6 thing, and Laura Logan and what's his name? I'm forgetting his name. Clay Higgins, the congressman from Louisiana. They're really on top of this J6 thing, right? So Laura Logan asked this question. She says, what area of the U.S. Capitol was restricted by the Secret Service on January 6th based on the presence of the Vice President? Why is this still not defined or known all this time later? This directly affects hundreds of J6 defendants. When will the Secret Service and DOJ do the right thing? Why isn't this defined or known all this time later? Witness, leave the courtroom.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
And
Stop asking questions. Stop questioning us, right?
kind of like that, yeah. Yeah.
It's like Animal Farmy vibes.
Yeah. And what people aren't getting is that this isn't just happening. This isn't just coming for the J6ers. This isn't just coming for Donald Trump. It's coming for everybody.
Yeah, one thing that I've heard is that people have been saying, well, if it can happen to Trump, one of the most, like, he had so much money. I mean, even now he still has quite a bit, but he's a pretty powerful guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if he can be, like, I guess, held to that system and taken the, I don't know, it's just like,
The beating.
yeah, that it can
Bigger
happen
than
to
beating.
you, and like what's gonna happen to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that can happen to such a man.
That's right. That's right.
And that's a pretty interesting thing. I mean, like, even if you don't like him, which, I mean, I guess if you don't like him, it's probably gonna be like, well, then that's a good thing that he could be held accountable, right? But then you gotta think, well, what about me if one day I'm, like, in some situation where I was framed for something and then, you know,
It
I
happens
can't do it.
all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. This has been going on for a while. And in one of my recent interviews, somebody had asked me, what do you think Donald Trump's thinks about the LGBTQ community, right? I don't know if that's part of your viewership, whatever you call it, your audience. But so I thought, you know what, I should probably have something to say about that, right? And I put some of this information on my Gifts and Go page. It's one of the, I think it's right after the Alina Habba clip that I was talking about. But I thought this was very interesting. This was put out by Red Pill Fairy on Instagram. It says here, do you know Donald Trump launched a global effort to end, hold on, my screen went blank, to end criminalization of homosexuality. On February 19th, 2019, Trump sent Rick Grinnell, the first openly gay cabinet member, to lead the initiative targeted at the 70-plus countries still punishing homosexuality.
Wow, I don't hear about that.
Well, of course you don't, because the mainstream media's not going to let you know,
Doesn't,
right?
Follow the narrative.
Right. So I didn't know it either, quite honestly. But I found that on Red Pill Fairy on Instagram. It was. I actually went looking for something else and found a bunch of other stuff. But that was very impressive.
Yeah, that definitely is. And what I want to know is were you aware like you are now of the court system and how it's kind of been thrown out the door where, you know,
That's a good question. I knew that law enforcement was corrupt. I didn't know it was this bad.
Yeah, so you were aware of it at least for a little. Yeah.
Yeah, and you would think with someone as high profile and wealthy as Donald Trump that the court the outcome would have been a little different, right?
Right, that they would have maybe bent a knee a little bit.
Right. Well, because there's so much money involved, right? And you've got all these attorneys, and you've got a lot of money there, and yet they still got away with what they got away with.
Because there's something more powerful than money at hand here.
What do you think that is? By the way, what do you think that is?
If I had to guess, just off of what I know today, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, certain politicians and, like, celebrities having done crimes that were so terrible that it can be used against them, and they're trying to save their own skin, basically. That would be my guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you think, Ellie? What do you think is more powerful than money to, like, corrupt judges, corrupt people in the court system?
Power itself. Probably. I don't know if that makes sense. Like money is one thing, but also the power and being in position of like holding that power is another thing.
And maybe certain politicians instill them to still have control.
Mm-hmm.
But that one is a little looser.
Also,
I don't know.
one thing, just holding secrets of people too.
Secrets. I like that word, secret. I like that word, secret, because those are good. Those are good answers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to know what I think it is?
Yeah.
Secret societies. Secret societies are running the show, and people need to be aware of this. People need to be aware of the secret societies. They've been running the show for a long, long time. All right, secret societies are real, and they are in control.
You know, and usually you hear that and you're like, well, I don't know what that means. That could be a conspiracy. But you have to ask yourself.
Another word. Another good word.
Yeah.
You know who invented that word,
the CIA.
Right? Thank you. Thank you.
Don't tell me that now.
Thank you. And so with that, when anybody hears that word conspiracy, that should be a red flag for everybody. Wait a minute, where have I heard this word before?
Yeah.
Conspiracy.
Yeah.
That's always one of those words where they try to shut down the truth, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is very interesting, and it's not even a conspiracy itself. To know that the CIA actually invented that word to discredit people that were actually bringing out truth.
Yeah. Well, also for me, it's just like, well, seriously, what is more powerful than money? Like you're you're showing your hand here. You know,
right.
Something's wrong.
When you
Something's
hold
weird.
people's secrets, people are willing to do things. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and some conspiracies have been recently outed with the stuff that we've heard about Jeffrey Epstein lately. You know. Ugh.
Right. Yeah, that's one.
Secrets are no fun. Secrets hurt someone.
But speaking on secret societies, can you name a secret society?
The Bohemian. Is it the Bohemian Grove?
Yeah.
That's one of them.
I was gonna say
that's
the
a really
Rothschild,
big one.
but I don't know the Rothschild.
No.
Remember that movie with Margot Robbie and the? Did you see Amsterdam? Have you seen?
No,
Amsterdam?
I've never seen that.
Oh my gosh, watch Amsterdam.
What about the Council of Foreign Relations, where all of your presidents come from, both Democrat and Republican? What about that one?
Is that in Harvard?
Yeah.
Is it?
What?
Yeah, these are very interesting things. This is a pretty big rabbit hole you could go down, which kind of messes with your brain sometimes.
Is it a rabbit hole? Or is it a truth hole?
It's a. The thing is though is that it kind of messes with your brain. There's one thing that is there's a saying, right? What's it called? Ignorance is bliss, right?
Oh, yeah.
Some people would rather not go down those because it's kind of disrupts their normal everyday life.
Yeah, but look, it personally affects someone. It is a huge destruction in their life.
Mm-hmm.
It's suddenly this inconvenient thing, this ignorance is bliss. It's makes sense that it's wait a minute, I have to care about this now. I mean, this is the main thing we see with our age group is they're just literally can't see it, don't have to think about it,
right.
Don't even have to have an opinion about it. That's, for most politics. But as you can see, that only lasts so long, and it can seriously backfire. So,
yeah.
Especially if you're just victim to your country or, whoever, your law enforcement,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, but, kind of talking about our own generation, though, but, what is probably your best advice to people like us that are younger, right? And even people who are starting to vote?
Advice. What do you mean? What kind of advice for what?
When it comes to the political world.
When it comes to the political world, I think you're doing all the right things, having discussions.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I would have any advice right now. Maybe in the future I might have some advice and I have some advice for you.
I got some actual things that
guess what? I got some advice.
But not right now. I mean, I was so impressed when I found out that you guys were out there. I'm like, finally, some young blood, right? Covering this stuff.
No,
I hear that a lot.
No. It was a relief, you know?
Yeah, I remember talking to you about that, you know. It's so interesting because I think that for such a long time, politics has been controlled by a lot of older people, and that's who's been reporting everything. And that's kind of why we jumped into this too, because we were like, well, what about our generation?
Well, you know what it's been controlled by? It's been controlled by mainstream media. That's been very controlled, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so you're coming up in a time where you can do this sort of thing. This wasn't available when I was your age.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is the narratives on social media. I mean, I found out that like 2.3 billion people log on, like actively get on and participate with Instagram every single day. That's like the whole, and you got the entire world in on this, you know what I mean? Like,
it's crazy. I mean,
and the thing is that the narratives can be controlled easier than we thought. Like, when something's taken off, when something's blocked, when somebody's suspended, the people have very little power. It's all in the hands of the corporation. You know? Yeah.
And I've heard some stories about that, by the way. Like, I want to say that I've heard something to the effect of, like, in the 50s, America lost control of America to the corporations. Yeah, so I believe it's been in the hands of the corporations for quite some time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and we were just hearing about that in the previous interview about industries like, well, the one that we were talking about specifically was Pornhub, but it was like mainly about how they get away with a lot of trafficking and they get away with a lot of illegal behavior, but it's because they're a big corporation, and at the end of the day, America is. So, Walmart, Amazon, I mean,
they get away with a lot of stuff through a lot of loopholes and things, but kind of talking about the new election that's coming in. Who are you voting for?
I don't think you can ask that.
Oh.
It's fine.
No. Like, who has you're mesmerized by that person for some reason.
There's someone out there by the name of Trump?
Yeah. I mean, has not any of the other candidates captured your attention?
Absolutely not.
I mean, we've had a lot of different candidates come on in this one. I mean,
yeah, but the Republican ones are dropping like flies.
They are dropping like flies, but did any of them, when they were still out there, capture your attention?
No.
Okay.
Not even Ron DeSantis.
Interesting.
He just dropped.
I saw a lot of people still even like Ron DeSantis, switch from Trump to go to him.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Well, no, I know what you're talking about, and I had not a whole lot of friends, but a couple of friends that would say things like, I remember when I was actually sitting in church listening to Trump talk about when he announced his candidacy, and I told my friend who was sitting there with me, I said, "Oh, Trump officially is running for president," which I had no doubt that he would.
Yeah.
And she says,
"Well, I don't know if he's right for the country. He's just too controversial, and maybe someone like Ron DeSantis."
I said, "Vomit."
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people that say because Ron DeSantis is more or less controversial, that he would be a better person because he doesn't he's not a polarized person, I guess, Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, when Donald Trump came out, and I remember he was talking about the fake news, right?
Yeah.
The fake news. I remember my first reaction was listen to this shit, the fake news. How does he think he's going to get the fake news? Come on. Oh my God. Not only was it a little bit of fake news, it's all fake news.
Yeah.
And I heard, I used to watch Candace Owens when she was on Dennis Prager.
Yeah.
And she talked a lot about that. And I remember when it all came home for me, because I thought, how bad is it? And a friend asked me to go to the California State Capitol. This was in May of 2020.
Okay.
And to the Open California rally because they had masked everybody up and all, it was the Open California thing.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, let me think about it. I said, yeah, I think I'll go. So I get up there to Sacramento, to the rally, and would you like to know how much media was covering that event in Sacramento, the Open California rally, where there was thousands and thousands and thousands of people? Would you like to know how much mainstream media was covering that?
How much?
I want someone to guess, please.
One outlet?
3 of them? I don't know.
Nobody.
100?
Nobody?
Nobody?
Nobody was there?
Nobody.
Did you not see a single camera?
Nobody.
So it didn't happen.
And so and I looked at it and I'm like, here I am at the California State Capitol. There's a major rally going on, and there's no mainstream media here covering. I thought, oh, it's all real what they're saying. Oh my God. Yeah. And going back to the Beverly Hills rally, I remember there'd be a media truck sitting on the side street right there off of Santa Monica Boulevard. And we'd see the truck there all the time, and we decided to go over there and ask questions like, why aren't you showing this on TV?
Yeah.
And so we went and asked them. They said, we see you here all the time. What are you doing? They said, we see everything. We are filming everything. We are sending it into the station, and they're doing nothing with it. There you go. Donald Trump was right again. Fake news.
Also picking and choosing the news.
Well,
I mean, I just always
lying by omission. How about that?
Yeah.
What are some like trusted news sources that you use?
That's a good question. Trusted news source that I use. I'll tell you what. I'm a Telegram junkie.
Telegram,
Yeah, and I'm really, really interested in the health issues. You know, like they say how that all the food is poisoned because they're trying to calcify your pineal gland. You've heard about that?
Well, I know all about the like I know that they are putting stuff in the food. Like there's so much stuff going around about food. Like they're causing us health problems that we aren't supposed to be having.
Right. And you know how nobody ever had to die of cancer, right? With everything that it's so unnecessary.
Yeah, there's so many people who are getting cancer. There's so many problems that are happening right now, and especially in young people when you never saw it before.
Right.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm super interested in that. One of the people I like to watch is Barbara O'Neill, and all of the information she has about health, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
Like it's the stuff that has been hidden from us.
So so what do you mean by people aren't supposed to get cancer, and the stuff with the food?
Well, you know what? There's a lot of things, like, for example, things in our bread, so how they, prepare our breads here.
Thank you, yes.
There's people who are gluten intolerant here, but if you eat bread that is from, actual, Italy or sourdough, they have a different reaction to it because of just how it's prepared.
Well, and the chemicals they're putting in the bread to make the dough rise, you've heard about that?
Yeah. And also, bread wasn't
yeast.
never that, I don't know, but bread wasn't never that white. Why are they... You know? There's a lot of things that they put in our stuff that is just, not healthy at all.
And it doesn't stop with bread.
No, it doesn't. No. That's a whole entire different topic that we could spend such a long time on. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are scaring
So-
me.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
No, I want to do something. I don't know how to approach the bread thing, though. I gotta go to all the bread
No,
factories.
sourdough's really good, so, it's a good one.
Sourdough's a good one?
Buy stuff from Italy. I don't know. Yeah.
You know what I heard?
Moldy.
You know what I heard recently about the olive oil. So,
That too.
Oh my
It's all
God.
fake.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
yes, but do you know how to test for the real olive oil?
Tell me.
So they were saying that if you put your olive oil in the refrigerator overnight and you check it in the morning, and if it's cloudy, it's the real stuff. If it's not cloudy, it's not. So I had this olive oil from Trader Joe's, which everybody thinks is so organic. It ain't.
It isn't.
Okay, and so I took my Trader Joe's olive oil out of the refrigerator, and it wasn't cloudy. I'm like, oh, I've got fake olive oil. So I was at Sprouts recently, and Sprouts got some fake shit too, right? And I saw a brand of olive oil that I'd never seen before. It's called Bragg's.
Yeah.
And Bragg's is the same name that puts out what's the vinegar? Help me.
Apple cider vinegar.
Thank you. Apple cider vinegar. The Bragg brand.
Yeah.
So I saw there was a Bragg brand of olive oil. I thought, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna take it home and put it in the refrigerator. Got it out the next day, and it was cloudy. And I'm like, real olive oil.
Bragg's olive oil. Everybody, Bragg's olive oil.
No,
generation will be cancer-free again.
There's so much. I'm literally, it's crazy how much stuff you could go into deep of how crazy our food is nowadays. And it's like, you don't even, like, you can't even call things, like, you can market something as 100% like real or organic, and they just use these names. Yeah. And then it actually really isn't.
That's right.
So
and just because they put a sticker on it calling it organic doesn't make it organic.
Right.
And just because you've been convicted of a crime doesn't mean you were guilty.
Yeah. There you go. That's a good time.
Yeah. Right.
No, that's really good. But we do have I think we're running out of time. So I want to have you just tell people is there a way to support you or find where you are?
Yeah, I want everyone to take a look at my Gifts and Go page. And you can find it by you can type it into the Google search, Gifts and Go, Eric Christie, E-R-I-C, Christie, C-H-R-I-S-T-I-E, and it'll come up. It'll be one of the choices. You can click on the Eric Christie J6 Disaster Relief Fund. And I want everybody to see that clip with Alina Habba talking about what happened to Trump at trials, the same thing that's happened at J6ers. There's a pretty cool clip on there, too, where Trump was recently at a New Hampshire rally, and a woman in the crowd is hollering, "Free the J6ers, free the J6ers, free the J6ers." And he stops and he looks at her and he says, "We will."
Wow.
So you're looking forward to that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
You're looking forward to that?
Justice.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's very hopeful.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
This has been the most exciting interview yet.
Oh, really?
Seriously. and normally I'm invited back, but I'm actually going to ask you, please have me back.
Yeah. We can talk about the food.
Thank you. Yes, talk about the food. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on, everybody, and definitely check out everything that he was saying. I don't remember everything, but definitely check that out. And then also our own page at 180.shift or 180.org.
Yeah. And Google
180shift.org.
Google Eric Christie, Gifts and Go.
Yeah. Yes, J6 Disaster Relief Fund. Yes.
Okay, yeah, and his Gifts and Go is going to be in the description too. So,
perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, thank you
Great,
so much.
thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.